and today we are kicking off the Flossie Quilt Along. I'm so excited. It is finally time. This is week 1. So, week 1, our sponsor is Grace and Company, and 3 winners will receive a stationery set, sticker, a notepad. It's all super adorable. In your week 1 email, there is all the details for how to enter this giveaway and get yourself eligible to win these prizes. If you aren't a participant, there's a link to get joined in right below this video. This week, our task is to get our fabrics chosen and cut. I did a little survey last week, and the majority of you told me that choosing fabrics is the hardest part for you. So we're going to cover that in a little bit more detail than we normally do during the long events. Before that, we're going to talk about how to read the fabric requirement charts within Flossie, or within all the quilts in the book, STASHWORK. So I wanted to, when I was writing this book, writing these patterns, I wanted to create patterns that were designed to get your stash used quickly and efficiently. There's an occasional pattern within the book that scraps would be fine for, but most of the time I was focusing on stash. So like half of a fat quarter. Those kind of pieces that are very hard to get used, less than a quarter yard, things like that. All the patterns focus on the 22-inch wide fat quarter, 1-inch wide fat quarter fabrics, but you can always cut any quarter yard in half along the manufacturer's fold, and you've got fat quarter width. Okay, so get that out of the way real quick. So this pattern has fabric requirements. I'm putting those up right now, and it does tell you how many fat quarters you would need to make this quilt. Within the pattern, though, it also tells you how many strips you need. So just in case you are sitting on fabric that is less than a fat quarter, which is what a lot of my problems are. I've got half of fat quarters a lot filled up in my stash. Those are hard to use because no pattern requires less than a fat quarter, right? So you can either choose to gather fat quarters or you can count strips. And when I say count strips, if a pattern called for 9 fat quarters, instead of just getting 9 fat quarters, I may get 20 fat quarters and cut 1 strip each or something like that. You decide what works best for you. If you want to gather fat quarters, yay. If you want to count strips, great too. Probably going to be doing a little bit of both in my demos. All right, so again, all of these patterns are about strips and strip piecing, and that is kind of the whole thing. They were made that way to make them fast and easy, and strip piecing is the easiest to me as far as piecing goes. There's nothing that beats strip piecing. Before we get started, let's say that the things I'm teaching you today, demonstrating all of that stuff, is what I do and what I use and how I go about my own quilting. We are not all the same. Take what you need from these videos and leave out what you don't. It's okay to have a different opinion, and it's okay to do things a different way. Don't get too caught up on the words light and dark. My quilt that you're seeing right now, the darks were oranges and pinks, and the lights were low volumes. Light and dark doesn't have to mean exactly what I've made. Your light could mean light shades of blue, and your dark could mean navy blues. You don't have to follow those rules. You can definitely toss those rules out and just put whatever wherever you want. I'm going to show you 2 tester quilts, and I'm going to show you one where she threw out all the rules, and then I'm going to show you another where she followed the rules. I just want you to see the different quilts they made. So this is Connie's quilt, and Connie decided she didn't play by the rules of Flossie, which if that's you, go for it. You don't have to follow these rules. I just used them to write the pattern, right? Connie decided she would cut her fabrics up any way she chose, and that is what you get. And I think Connie's quilt is so pretty. Let me just tell you this right quick. This is a block. So the light part is the fat strip, and the smaller strips are your dark places. So you can see that she used the same fabrics for her lights and darks in the quilt, and it still came out pretty. So again, if that's something you want to do, throw out all the rules, do it. Okay, that's Connie's quilt. I think she has a little video of this quilt too. So pretty. It is so pretty. All right, so let's look at Nicole's quilt. Nicole's quilt, this looks like Anna Maria Horner fabrics. All right, so Nicole used low volumes for her lights, and it looks like any color she wanted to add for her darks. If you want to just use a single fabric collection as some of your darks, which is what it looks like Nicole did, that's a good idea. That's actually what I'm going to be doing in my quilt too. I'm using a collection that was already grouped together for my darks, and I'm just going to use low volumes and white solids for my lights. It looks great. So again, choose whatever your heart desires. Let's look at Nicole's video here. It's so pretty. I don't think you can make a bad choice. I think that whatever you choose will be great. So I think it would actually be easier to not follow the rules that are spelled out into this quilt and make it where anything goes as far as dark and light placement within the quilt. You see the block here. I think it would be easier to let anything go if you decided to go that route. In the fabric requirements, I've got the fat quarters broken up into 9 light and 13 dark. You would just add those together. You wouldn't choose your fabric separately, you'd choose them all together. So totally up to you. I think it's actually probably easier that way. But there's something that I like about following the rules in this pattern, and that is that like in this quilt, that low volume, that light spot gives my eye a place to rest, and it just makes for an interesting look. There's no wrong choice. Choose what you want. If you want to go with anything goes, no rules, do it. If you want to follow all the rules, follow them. Let's talk about tips for following those rules. Light and dark doesn't have to mean exactly what I've made. Your light could mean light shades of blue, and your dark could mean navy blues. So light and dark can mean anything you want. They're just meant to show you the contrast within the quilt. On your light and your dark, you do want to choose contrasting fabrics. So contrast just means that you visually see a difference. So in the quilt I'm showing you, low volumes are my light, oranges and pinks are my darks. Start by giving yourself rules for those light and dark fabrics, all right? So what's your rule? Your rules can be based on what you have in your stash. Maybe your blues are out of control. Maybe that should be something you focus on in this quilt. Or maybe you're just choosing colors of what you want. The easiest way to choose fabrics that I can tell you is to limit the amount of colors that can come into your quilt. So again, for this quilt, I said oranges and pinks only. Orange and pinks are my darks, and no other color was allowed to enter this quilt. That purple fabric might be beautiful, but it couldn't come into this quilt, okay? So easy colors to choose that look great together. Orange and yellow, orange and pink, red and orange, red and pink. These colors go great. Blues and purples, blues and greens. Another easy thing is to choose only cool colors or only warm colors. These are little bitty tiny tricks that can make it easier for you to choose fabrics. All right, so when you're going to pull fabrics, you've already had a look over at your stash, or you've already made a decision on, hey, I want a very yellow quilt. Whatever your decision is, have it in your mind before you go and choose fabrics. That way when you go to your stash and start pulling, you know exactly what to pull. I'm pulling all these oranges. Maybe I've pulled 30 fabrics, okay? And then you can do your process of elimination on them, or you can use all of them, whatever you want to do. I'm going to show you those mock-ups, and I'm going to play with fabrics within those mock-ups. But I also want to say that especially for Flossie, when you're choosing fabrics, I'd stick really, really close to the same intensity of color. So like in this quilt, I've chosen all those oranges and pinks. But if I had put a dark red in there, it was a warm color, but it would have stand out and would have grabbed your eye. Let's talk about intensity. So maybe a baby blue versus a navy blue. Maybe you're making a blue quilt and you've decided all blue fabrics are allowed. Do not choose one dark blue. Make sure you choose a few. Because if you choose one, your eyes, when you look at your finished quilt top, are going to go towards that dark fabric. Same thing if you're going with lights. If you don't choose more than one light, your eye is going to go right to that light fabric, and it's all it's going to see. The quilt's not going to flow. All right, so what you're seeing on the screen right now is the mock-up from the book. And everything is pretty balanced as far as intensity goes. All the colors are within the same depth, okay? So there's nothing that really just grabs your eye. There's no dark colors. There's no super light colors except for the lights. Nothing is eye-grabbing. It all just kind of flows and blends. So this is one way of thinking about the quilt. There's so many more though. All right, so here is another one, and this is in shades of purple, a little bit of pink, and some orange. And in these shades, your eye is being drawn to the darker ones because there's nowhere near the same amount of depth in these fabrics. They're high contrasting. To me, this one, all the darks are too contrasting. I can see where this could look good if you played around with it a little bit more, but I feel like it's harder to make it look good. All right, in this one, I've used the exact same colors, but a more even amount of them. The lighter dark fabrics are the same amount as the darker dark fabric, so it's looking a little bit more balanced. All right, here is another mock-up, and this one is using lighter fabrics. We're using lots of greens, a little bit of pinks and oranges, but again, the eye is going straight to these darker green fabrics because there's too much darker than the other darks. Okay, so I just feel like, I mean, I'm sure that this could look good, but it'd just be harder to make it look good. All right, and here is where I balance it a little bit more. And it's got about the same amount of them, and it's also got, this about the same amount of those intensities. So I've got those darker greens, and then I've also got some lighter fabrics, but I've balanced them more. So when you're cutting your fabrics, let's say, I know this isn't the right number, but let's say you're cutting 20 dark strips. You may want to make 10 of them darker and 10 of them lighter if you're trying to have differing intensity levels here. These are blues, and you can see what happens with that navy blue fabric. I just didn't put enough in this mock-up. All right, and here is what it's happening when I disregard the rules of light and dark in this quilt. You end up, and this may be a little bit easier to achieve, not deciding lights and darks. Maybe you just use fabrics that look good together, because this is looking really, really pretty here, I think. So that may be an easier choice for you. I feel like the light fabric, in this case white, gives the quilt some space, versus when I change that, it makes a much more saturated quilt and there's no space. I like both of them. I'm just trying to figure out, what I want to do for my quilt. I really like both ideas. So it's a hard decision. I can see why everybody just struggles with it, because it's hard to choose. Okay, so I have chosen my fabrics. What I'm going to do for my quilt is I'm going to use this single collection of merrymaking fabrics. I'm going to use those for my darks. Even though some of them, are low volumes, I'm still going to use all of these as darks. And I'm going to be making the 70 by 70 inch quilt, and it calls for 13 fat quarters of dark, but I've got 15 here. So instead of using the fabric cutting instructions exactly the way it's written in the pattern, I'm going to spread it out a little bit more over my 15 fabrics. For my lights, I've got just a couple of low volume prints, and then I've got a bunch of these like different shades of white solids. And a lot of these are like a 1/4 yard or a little bit more than a 1/4 yard. And all I'm going to do is open them up and cut right on that manufacturer's fold. So just like that. And now I have a fat quarter width fabric. So that's going to be all my lights, and these are going to be all my darks. I'm ready to prepare my fabrics now. Okay, so we are going to prepare our fabrics by putting some pressing spray on the fabric. I just spritz it on there like that, and then give it a good press. These 2 steps will help you cut accurately and piece accurately. So it does add extra time, but it means overall your quilt will be better, and also less frustrating for you if something doesn't come out the right size. So I'm going to work my way through all of my darks and then all of my lights, and then we'll start cutting. Oh, one thing I forgot to tell you is that as I'm pressing these, I'm going ahead and turning them all in the same direction. So all of my selvages are over here, and all of my, cut side of the fabric is over here. I like to do that at this step because it just kind of keeps me more organized, and it keeps me from having to, do it right before I cut, because it's important when we start sewing our strip sets together that we put all the selvages together and then all the cut sides together. All right, I'm going to finish this up and I'll see you in a minute. Okay, I'm all pressed. I changed my mind. Merrymaking was 15 fabric. It's a 15-piece fabric collection, and that's what I'm using for my darks. but it had these two fabrics in it with Santa Claus. They're bigger than the strip for the dark fabrics. So Santa would have gotten all chopped up into tiny bits. And while that might have been okay, so pretty, and I can't bear to cut into him. I think I'd rather save him for some fussy cutting down the road, or maybe even the back of this quilt. Like I could have a scrappy looking backing, and that's what I'm thinking. So I'm pulling these two fabrics and I'm going to put them aside. And this is the part of the fabric collection that I like the most, and it hurts to take them out, but I don't want to cut his face off. I'd rather use them for fussy cutting. So, so now I have 13 fat quarters for my foreground and just a whole bunch of low volume and white solid pieces for my background. These I'm going to be cutting exactly as detailed in the pattern, but these I'm going to count. And when I say count, if you're looking in your pattern at the fabric requirements, you're seeing how many fat quarters you need, but also there's right below it, there's a big or. You could cut X amount of this size strip. So you could also just sit here and count, oh, I cut 2 strips, 4 strips, 8 strips. That's kind of what I did on the past STASHWORK quilts that we've already done quilt alongs for. So just to keep things clear. All right, we're all prepared. Our fabric is crisp and ready for cutting. Let's cut. All right, so we are going to cut light fabrics first, whatever that means to your quilt. Light fabrics first. For me, that is going to mean low volumes and white solids. So I'm going to put these, and I've got the selvage right here, and what I'm going to do is put the selvage on a horizontal line, and this is going to help me line up to have more accurate cutting. So I've got the selvage on one of the horizontal lines on my mat, and then I've overlapped one of these vertical lines so that I can cut myself a straight edge. And I'm going to layer up. I like to layer up about 4 to 5, 6 fabrics and cut them all at once. I just want to make sure that, the whole edge across the vertical line. So I'm actually, cutting off this smidge, just give myself a straight edge to work from. That's 4 and 5. All right, then I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to put the edge on that line that I want to start cutting on. So that's going to look like this. Let me just pull this down just a little bit. And my eyes aren't going to go to the edge because I can't see that line underneath all this fabric. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look 1 inch away. I'm going to look on the 1 inch line of my ruler, and I'm going to line that up with 1 inch away from where I actually want to cut at. So I'm lining up the lines of my ruler with the lines of my mat, putting some pressure down, and I'm going to cut myself a clean edge. All right, and now I'm just going to start cutting the strips as detailed in the pattern. So when I do, I line up the ruler with the mat. Pressure down and cut. And then I'm going to try to get all the strips I can get out of these fabric pieces. Okay, so I'm counting strips on my lights, so I'm going to actually physically count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, and then this one is a scrap. So I've got 9 here. I'm going to write down 9 on my little notepad and then continue on working my way through the light fabrics that I've pulled. So we're going to do it again. All right, and then I'm going to line up to cut myself a clean edge again. And I'm looking at the bottom of the ruler and at the top of the ruler, and I'm making sure those lines on my mat and ruler line up on both ends of it. Okay, got some scrap here. And then let's count these as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Got one scrap. 8, 9, 10. And then I'm going to add that 10 to the 9 I've already cut. And now I've got 19. All right, so I know from the fabric requirements how many strips I need. So I'm going to continue cutting my lights this way, get them all cut and ready to go, and then we'll do our darks together. All right, so I finished my stack of light fabrics. That's over there out of the way, all stacked up, nice and neat. And then I'm going to start grabbing my darks, and I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to line up that selvage right here on a horizontal line on my mat. So on my darks, I am cutting those exactly as detailed in the cutting chart of the book. So we're on page 32 of the book, and it tells us how many strips to cut up from each fat quarter and what size to cut them. So follow along with your pattern for this part, or if you're counting strips on your darks too, you know, do it the same way that I did my lights. Just keep a running total of how much they are. When you're counting strips, you're able to use more fabrics, which might be the look you're going for, but also it uses up smaller pieces within your stash. So I really like how versatile these patterns are. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to line up the lines on my ruler with the lines on my mat, and I'm checking here, but I'm also checking on this side of the fabric. That way I can make sure that the ruler lines up, you know, all the way across. Put some weight down. Cut myself a clean edge. All right, and now I'm going to start cutting these strips. And then I've still got, you know, a pretty decent amount of scraps from those fat quarters that I can use for binding, or, you know, just put it in my scrap bin. So I have this nice pile of strips ready to go. And I haven't been saying this, but don't cut the selvages off yet, because we'll do that when we start cutting our strip sets up. All right, I'm going to continue on with the rest of my dark fabrics, and then I'll see you when I have it all complete. All right, I finished cutting. I'm working on that 70 by 70 inch size, and the cutting is just not that bad on it at all. I particularly like that Flossie doesn't have a background to cut in addition to all the other fabrics. It's just lights and darks. So I'm ready to go. I got my stack of darks, I got my stack of lights, and just a reminder that light and dark may mean something different to you and your quilt. After we've completed this task, we'll be ready to start our block making. So don't forget to enter the giveaway. It was in your week 1 email, all the information for you, and the button to click to get yourself eligible. Thanks for watching this video. I will see you next week.